Good evening, and welcome to the March Open Space Greenways meeting. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, all. Unfortunately, we have no minutes for the February meeting. Mrs. Nielsen has had some very serious family issues, and she was unable to prepare the minutes or present them tonight, so we're going to withdraw, just pass on that issue and hope that Pat's family returns to health. And also, Daryl Flarsky is not here tonight. He's down in Florida taking care of his condo. Are there any revisions to the agenda that we have? Okay, we're fine. We'll add the trail report right after the public comments. Okay, now if we could start by, Carl, could you give us an update on the township activities and anything that you want to impart to us?
Yes, two things, Mr. St. Pierre. Number one, we do have in the budget now money for the Albemarle Meadows due diligence. You'll recall the last meeting we were speaking about the option of perhaps putting wood chips or some kind of trail down there. That has been ruled out by the environmental report. This commission considered that. In speaking with Township Manager Ream, it became obvious that we do have a due diligence that is required of us, and the township has, in speaking with Chief Financial Officer Darsnick and Township Manager Ream, we have money that has been set aside for that. Apparently it is approximately $5,000 to do the due diligence to take us to the next level so that we can protect that property and protect people that might seek to use it. It is in concert with good governance and I think a desire to do the right thing on the part of the township. So there are funds that are set aside. That is up to a total of $5,000, and I'm confident that we should be able to spend less than that. The second thing is that I have also spoken with Township Manager Ream about considering the purchase of property with open space funds. We do have limited funds, and because there is no open space millage, this is all that will be available. So that if there are property owners that are considering selling property to the township and it meets the criteria of this commission and the township for purchase, that's all we have to deal with. We're not going to be looking at doing this in 5 and 10 years absent some kind of a new millage. So Mr. Ream is discussing that matter with and investigating what the proper amounts would be for an offer. And if we have a willing seller, then there's going to be a recommendation made to this commission. Mr. Ream will give us the options, and then this commission would make the recommendation to the township board. So we have a couple of properties that he is investigating to try and come up with a price that is fair for everyone.
Very much, Carl. Next, the Grosse Ile Nature Land Conservancy. Bert?
The Conservancy has a couple events planned. The first one is this March 31st. There's going to be training to do a frog and toad survey. That training is going to be held at the Gibraltar Bay unit of the refuge, which is 28820 East River. at 7 p.m. on Friday the 31st. And what that involves is learning how to identify frogs and toads, and then going out on certain dates to listen and then submit the data. So this is an act of citizen scientists, and it's very valuable. Frogs and toads are very vulnerable to changes in the environment, and so this is kind of a way to check the health of the environment by monitoring the presence or absence of these species. So that's a very fun educational thing. The entire family can get involved. And then on April 22nd, which is Earth Day, the Conservancy is having an Earth Day celebration at Centennial Farm from 1 to 4. So there'll be kids' activities, information for adults about recycling. The police department will be there collecting your old medicine. So that is a way to protect the environment. You know, do not flush stuff down the toilet or down your sink or anything. So there'll be a variety of interesting events going on that day.
Is that going to be held again?
At Centennial Farm. And that's about it for the Conservancy.
Shelke's not here tonight, so we'll have nothing from the Recreation. And the Grosse Ile Schools. Mitch, do you have anything?
Yep, just one real quick announcement. The money for the sweatshirts to identify the kids in D.C. has been allocated. They haven't told me anything about like whether it's been used or not, but it's been given to them, and seeing as how D.C. is coming up in a few short weeks, I'm assuming that it's been allocated and everything is okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitch. Beautification Committee. Ann?
Okay. We're going to be hosting what's called the Beautification Council of Southeastern Michigan, and it was planned at the Education Center at the International Wildlife Refuge, but it's not going to be open on June 15th. So the alternative plan is to do it here on the island, and we've taken a theme of preservation is progress. We've checked this out with the Beautification Council, and they're excited about the idea because it's an unusual program. We're asking people that have taken over historic homes to talk about how they've restored the home and brought in these Civil War era homes up to the 21st century. And we've asked John Wilkie, who was the architect here, to take the hangar and make it into a state-of-art township hall, and it will probably include a bus tour to see the historic district, possibly the lighthouse, and then the pilot house was given a Keep Michigan Beautiful award because they took the old officers club during the war and converted it into a useful, actually a hotel. And this isn't completely finalized yet because the Beautification Committee meets tomorrow night here. But we had a prelim meeting, and this is what we're going to propose. There are usually about 50 to 75 people from all over the southeastern Michigan area that are involved with beautification committees and commissions, and they have quarterly meetings, and we're hosting for the summer meeting. And we're going to have a display, and I'd like to have things like our trail guide out so they can see some of the neat things that we have here on Grosse Ile.
Very much, Pam. Next part of the meeting will be public comments. If anybody has any comments to make, if they could come forward and introduce themselves at the podium. Anybody? Yes, Ernie.
Ernie Horvath, 29785 Bayview Drive. I would just like to inform the Open Space Committee that the Army Corps is now working on a program. They'll be back this summer to explain what they're going to be doing at the old Navy base. The work orders are now being written, and one of the work orders that they're doing is a groundwater study. Now, when they study the groundwater on the former government property, wherever those groundwater aquifers and tributaries take them, if it takes them to the north end of the island, they're going to follow it and see if there are any contaminants in the water that are hazardous to our health. Now, when they do that, they may be going under some open space property. And it's my understanding from the $15 million that we've spent since this program has been into effect that we've never done a phase 1 or phase 2 testing on any of this property. So if they find something, there could be a potential liability there. There could be a cleanup issue there, but that's for the Army Corps to tell us. So by us being the township, never doing a phase 1 or 2 on property that you decided to purchase or recommend to be purchased, and if they find something, what is that property worth now? What does it do to the inventory? What does it do to the neighborhood? Now, this is going to be an ongoing study. It's going to take a long time, but they have methods and technology. They can do it with thermal photography. They can do it with nanotechnology. They can do it with suction. They can do it with machinery. So if you didn't do your due diligence, it will be found. So if you're looking at new property, I highly suggest that you put it in your policies and procedures. As Woody Clark said at the last meeting, you better not buy till you drill. That's my only suggestion.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If not, we'll proceed to the item that we've just added, and that is the trail report, and we'll start with the Playscape Trail. Pam?
Well, this goes way back. I was walking behind Kroger's in some wooded area, and it looked like there was already an existing trail back there. And I found out that that was an old logging trail because they'd go back in there and find black walnut and bring it out. And so it seemed to be already partially a trail. And I brought my granddaughter down there, and it was just a log to get into the trail. And she slipped off the log and got her tennis shoes all wet and muddy. And that was the beginning. But Lucas Tilley took it on as an Eagle Scout project and made it into a walking trail with a little loop because it couldn't go all the way through the public safety building. But Emily was there when the trail was officially open, and I just walked it yesterday or this afternoon, and it's in pretty good shape, except it's very wet. There's some low spots that are very soggy, and I think if there's wood chips available, I think at one time it was chipped, the Playscape Trail, because wasn't there kind of a mountain of chips there, and it was...
Yes, there was, and those chips were spread by volunteers. Now, if there's additional chips that are required further on down the trail, let us know and we can have the chips dumped and, if necessary, taken down to that trail. However, we have to be very careful that we don't do it in such, when the weather is warm or wet, because it'll cause more damage than it's going to correct. So if we need more chips, we'll get them, and then you tell us where they should be placed.
There's one very low spot that was pretty mushy, and there were a lot of branches that had fallen, but no trees had fallen over, and I only found one piece of trash, so that was good.
That's good news. That's good news. Okay, thank you, Pam. Does anybody else have anything to say about any trails at all?
Or what?
What?
Yeah, just real quick. I went through the Manchester Trail probably a month ago. I expect to go through it again soon. But the signs that I've noticed, in the future, I think we could probably put up a couple more because they're pretty sparse when you're like deep in there. But the ones that are up right now don't seem to have any damage. They're in good shape, actually. They've been in very good shape.
Do you have a supply of signs?
I don't know. Or I do. All right.
Your supervisor informed me that you do.
Right. Well, we do have signs
Okay.
apparently. Thank you.
So, yeah, feel, if you want to put some signs, additional signs up, just go ahead and do it. Do you need anything
Yeah.
from us?
No.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody?
Signs, you mean the directional arrows?
Yeah, the small green directional arrows back in there. There's a few in there, but they're pretty high up, and there's a couple of them, only a couple. So I think in the future that would be a good thing for us to do.
Along with that, if memory serves, there was, and I forget the gentleman's name, was going to make a presentation to us about some additional signage on the Manchester Trail. I forget the gentleman's name. I think he was one of the local conservation groups. Yeah, it escapes me right now. I just thought about it as you were mentioning it, and if he is listening tonight, have him call me and make arrangements for him to come forward at the next meeting. There's nothing else as far as the action items are concerned. Woody, the dump the junk date, I believe, has been set, has it not? Okay. In May? I think we did set a date, and I think Pat has it in her minutes. Bert, are you going to check? I believe it's the second week.
Try to get it in front of the other part, the one that comes up that everybody says, oh, how come we didn't know about this one? You know, the one that...
I think the one in
hazardous
Taylor,
waste.
I think that one is April 22nd, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no. You told us the dates. There was 3 of them.
I don't have it on my calendar.
We can do it next month.
Okay, I think I've received some inquiries from the DPS asking when the dump. We're getting inquiries already as to when we're going to have the next dump the junk. So you're going to say May?
I'm going to say May right now.
Okay.
But I want to emphasize that we have a lot of people call them whatever they want to call them, but they're railroad ties. And they call them something else, a beautification one, or this one, or that one. It's a railroad tie. Don't bring it.
Okay, I think what we have to do, we have to get this date firmed up post haste, because May is going to be upon us before you know it. I believe it's the. I believe it was the first. I think it was the first weekend in May, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check the minutes.
Okay. Oh, we can always say next. It isn't like we have to jump, hip, scup, and jump and get there. You're ready for the.
All right, we'll get it firmed up shortly.
I have to have 4,000 hours to do it, right?
And I think, to your point, I think the thing we have to do is make sure that we do it before one of the hazardous waste
That's what
programs.
I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about it having the weekend before.
Yeah, right.
So when folks came up with things that we didn't accept, we could provide them specific details for the
Basic
following
thing.
weekend.
Yeah, but I think that their schedule was too early for us. I'll look it up.
Okay.
It was one in June, but I could be wrong.
Okay. We'll get that firmed up this month sometime. The next issue is the subject of a study session that we had between 6 and 7 o'clock concerning the ferry trail issue, and I think that we have come up with some a decent direction for further studies. We're looking at a couple of options, and Bert, can you kind of give us a capsulized view of what we did and what we're planning to do?
In the event folks don't know, can we give them the background first?
Right, yeah. To kind of summarize, so we recently became aware that some property near Ferry Road and the Thoroughfare Canal has been sold with the intention of 2 houses being built there. And so currently what's called the Ferry Trail, there's Gage Road ends at open space, And there's open space there, the trail that goes through there, the open space property ends, and then there's private property up until Ferry Road. So that trail has been in use for a long time by many, many residents, bicyclists as well as pedestrians. And so now there's a great deal of concern over the property being developed and that access being shut. So open space and the bike path people are very interested in just investigating what can be done to continue to allow access to people in that general area. So we've been talking with the property owner, and we're looking at other options. So that's kind of where things are at right now. I mean, we're going to explore everything. We're definitely hoping to find a way to have people to continue to access between the property north of Island Road and Ferry Road. So, I mean, right now we're just kind of exploring those options. So that's about it. I don't know if anybody has anything else to comment on that.
No, I think that's that capsulizes what we're going to do. It's a serious issue, as Bert has correctly stated. A lot of people use that trail, and our objective here is to come up with a situation that satisfies everybody's concerns. And that's kind of difficult to do, but I think we're up to the challenge. Next issue is an item that we have talked about before, and that is vandalism. And I think this goes to the ferry trail as well, is that there's been a report of a lot of whiskey bottles, trash, and other items that various type of activities that's taking place in some of the trails, unfortunately. I know we've had some problems with the wildlife sanctuary. Some of the signs have been stolen and damaged and so forth, and that's very distressing to us. Pat Nielsen, who is not here tonight, had a meeting with the chief of police concerning this issue, and he has pledged his full support to try to curtail this activity, but it's something that everybody has to become involved with, and that is talk to the school, to the children, talk to your people, to the people that you know that vandalism is very destructive. It's costly, and it just ruins the natural areas that we're trying so hard to maintain. And Mitch, if you can, when you get back to the schools, could you tell them that this is a very serious issue? Talk to your principal, and I'd like to get the word out to all the school students in Grosse Ile schools to help us curtail and prevent vandalism.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay? So if he needs someone else to come and talk to the schools directly, we'll be able to do that. But do what you can. Let me know if you need any help.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that on the Grosse Ile Police Department, and I don't want to limit this just to the idea that these are local kids or local children that might be involved or local people. On the police department, we find that a significant portion of the people that are pulled over for traffic violations, in fact, live off the island. And I would submit there's not an awful lot of open space in some of the neighboring communities, which makes this an even bigger draw for that kind of conduct and reprehensible activity, because I think it's an opportunity that's not present in a lot of other communities. So perhaps even posting some signs at some point might be in order.
I think when we do talk to the schools, we want to make it a positive, where we're asking for their help and their cooperation. Okay, is there anything else that we need to discuss? Anything for the April meeting?
Well, here, let me give you the dates of the household hazardous waste events through Wayne County. So Saturday, April 22nd, which is Earth Day, is going to be in Romulus at the Romulus Civic Center, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Saturday, June 10th, it will be in Dearborn at the Henry Ford College. On Saturday, August 12th, it will be in Westland at the Westland Shopping Center. And on Saturday, October 7th, it will be in Taylor at Wayne County Community College District, the Downriver campus.
October 7th?
Right.
So if we have a
So that will help the fall one.
chunk, we're going to do it in front of that.
Yeah.
7.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the Romulus date again?
Romulus is Saturday, April 22nd. So Romulus, you want the actual location, Romulus Civic Center? Okay, that's April 22nd. Right, and that's June 10th. Westland is at the Westland Shopping Center, August 12th. And Taylor is Wayne County Community College, October 7.
The North Line.
Fine, right.
Having said that, Woody, I would suggest that we aim for mid-May for the,
Okay, well, what's the date? Pick a date.
pick a date. We'll do it right now.
22nd. Here's the calendar.
So Mother's Day is the 14th.
Good. Everybody wants to ship their mother.
All right, let's make it, what's wrong with the 20th and the 21st of May? That way, it's before the June 10th date at Henry Ford Community College for the hazardous waste, and so we can publicize that.
Okay, what day did we pick for us?
19th, excuse me, June
The 20th and 21st, correct?
20 and 21st of May.
Okay.
Okay, so it's at May 20th and May 21st.
I can tell you people down at Donna Incorporated that that's the dates.
Okay.
Okay, 21st, okay. Very good. Okay, anything else? I'll start down at the, why don't I start, okay, Pam, real quick.
Yeah, I just heard today about some vandalism at the Playscape, and there were a couple of kids that they found out who they were, and the police are going to provide a camera there to catch anybody, hopefully. But the parents, this is what I just heard today, the parents are going to find out when the next cleanup is of the Playscape area, and they're going to make sure these kids that were caught vandalizing it will be there to help pick it up and clean it up.
Right.
So at least
That's
sometimes
excellent news. Yeah.
they find the one that did the dirty work, and they're going to make them
Good.
come back and do some cleanup.
Just real quick. What types of vandalism are you guys seeing? Just so I could get a description of it.
Well, there are some cases where we have where signs have been damaged. Litter has been tossed around, and it's damage to the existing signs, and
Yeah.
it's trash that's been thrown on the trails, and whiskey bottles, and etc.
All right, thank
The
you.
lights over at the Playscape were broken.
Okay.
And there's also been graffiti of very offensive nature has been there.
But Carol's point, I think we should approach this from a positive point of view. In other words, we're not accusing anybody, we're asking for people's help.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
Yeah, I just have one question. Carl, if you don't mind. As far as the Albemarle study, are there any next steps on that, or who's taking lead, or details to follow?
Yeah, I spoke with Dale about that, the township's
Okay.
manager. He knows that we're interested in it. In fact, it's something that had been on his desk, and he
Okay.
said it was a mutual, we both need to do something with this. I brought it up to him, and he indicated he was very supportive, and in fact, believes that the next step is to go out and essentially do an RFP, request for proposal. Let's study that, get the results, and then determine what we need to do, whether there should be worst-case scenario from an aesthetic standpoint, a fence. Best-case scenario would be signs, but there has to be something there to show that we are doing our due diligence and going forward.
Sure.
And he expects that's going to be less than $5,000, and there is money set aside in the budget for that.
So actually, there's nothing more that we, as a committee, need do on this? I just want to, or is there something more that we should do on it, Carl?
No, what I'll do is follow up with Dale again on that.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a lot of opportunity to speak, certainly twice a month, and on other matters, so I would follow up with him next time I speak with Dale and let him know that we're all interested, that this commission is interested in going forward with that
Okay.
and doing what we are required to do to meet our due diligence and satisfy our obligations here.
Yeah, and my reason for asking was that if support was required, just please let us know.
I don't think that that's going to require an action item.
Okay.
If it does, Dale will tell me and say, look,
Okay.
I need something more. I doubt it because it is a maintenance issue.
Okay.
And it's something that there is money set aside, and we're going into budget this month, so that's front and center for what we have.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just wait, take your lead on it, and if there's anything we need to do, just let us know.
I'm going to suggest that he follow up and give us an idea by our next meeting as to how he proposes that we should go forward with this, since the study is something he is very familiar with. He's already got the contacts
Sure.
for that, so that's the course that I would propose.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we'll take care of that, and then I'll report back to the next meeting.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I just have one thing to the, as far as property purchases is concerned, I think as part of the process of purchasing property, I think we, correct me if I'm wrong, we do have in our purchase procedures considerations for environmental testing, do we not?
A Phase 1 analysis under the environmental laws is required. Typically, if you are, I'm going to use an example of purchasing commercial property, and there is a gasoline station or has been a gasoline station within a certain radius. Those are the most obvious. Those are the ones that you see in the commercial setting most likely. If there is an open and obvious area that would most likely, to the reasonably prudent person, be expected to have contaminants, then the lenders require you to go forward to do a Phase 2 analysis to find out what the extent of the contamination is. But that's typically in the commercial setting. Mr. Horvath has indicated, and it certainly would be prudent for any purchaser to look at Phase 1 and Phase 2. The airport is potentially a very large problem for downriver area with what he and Mr. Heil believe is there and have support with documentary evidence. There's going to be an awful lot. When you talk about the Army Corps of Engineers coming down and starting, there's going to be an awful lot of information that's going to come out that we simply, I don't believe, have right now. I'm certainly not aware of it. I've been on the commission, on this commission for 3 months now, and have been a member of the Township Board since November. But this study is going to be very important, and that's something that we're going to be going forward with. There was also a Citizens Advisory Committee that was in process last year, and I will follow up on that and find out where that is, because we had, I believe it was something like 50 applications. And I think that's going to need to be something that will go hand in hand with what the Army Corps is proposing. And I'd be surprised if the Department of Environmental Quality, MDNR, doesn't get involved.
Yeah.
So MDEQ, and I think that there's been an awful lot of identification of issues out there, and we're going to have to step up to it one way or the other.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Bert, anything?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
A year ago, this past January, the Army Corps put on a meeting in this very room. Public wasn't informed. So I informed as many people that was involved with me, and we showed up. I have a video DVD of that meeting if anyone would like to see it. It's very informative. The process now is that they're creating a remediation advisory board, which is typical when the Army Corps comes in to inform the residents of what they're doing, so we know. They also, previous to the meeting a year ago this past January, sent out 1,800 letters to everyone within 1.25 miles of the old Navy base. They were looking for responses. It was a 2-page questionnaire. A lot of people said they didn't get it, but it probably wasn't identified as a government official, so it just went in the round file. This is a serious issue. It affects at least, I think, 1,800 families within a mile radius of that old Navy base. They won't go south, but they will follow the tributaries, as I said, of the underground aquifers that could flow north and off the island and underground. So that's one of their groundwater studies they're going to do. But they move slow, they have contractors, they have to write everything up. And remember, they get paid by the page of everything they do.
Understood.
So that's the reason. Now, I'm in contact with them.
Yeah.
We're going to put something up on GITV that's going to tell about the meeting coming up this summer, so everyone will be aware. Even if you're not in that radius, you should probably attend, because it could potentially affect you wherever those aquifers go. We don't know. It's never been looked at. And in the history of Grosse Ile, since I was here, about 40 years, it seems like a week. It just went by quick. When I was a kid, we used to drive out here from Lincoln Park and wander around. Now, when all of Downriver was built, Southgate, Wyandotte, Lincoln Park, Allen Park, Riverview, the contractors would use Grosse Ile as a dumping ground. So wherever they saw empty space, and remember at that time there were maybe 4,000 people living here. So they'd come out at night, dump their paints, their lacquers, their whatever they were using, and leave. So that's why you don't have any idea what's been dumped all over the island over time. My friends used to come out here in the 60s, park in a dark spot, and then they get stuck in the mud and they couldn't get out. So they'd have to call a tow truck. It was embarrassing. But this was known as a place to get rid of your stuff if you're a builder. And I don't know if you're aware of that. Even the natives living here, they probably weren't aware, because you're driving by the woods. You don't know what they did in there. You don't have a clue. No one's going in there. So I'll keep you guys informed about the Army Corps, what they're doing, and they want to help us. They haven't been here since '97. Something prompted them to come back since '97 when it was supposedly all cleaned up. Well, what prompted them to come back was a vapor intrusion study done by the state of Michigan, which affects the entire state, of groundwater vapors with toxic material in it coming up through your basement floor and causing you a health problem. This is a major issue across the country, so we should feel fortunate that they're here to help us on that very issue. But since '97, they haven't done anything, but they were aware of it.
Thank you.
So if I can, so there was a study in '97?
'97 was the last time they closed it out. They always close these issues out.
Okay.
These books were all available at the EPA office here.
Okay.
Bill Heil went through those books from A to Z. I was working on other things. They make them public at the Bacon Memorial Library for anyone interested. You can go down there and you can go through them yourself.
Okay.
But now, they're not there anymore. So we have a mystery going on. So I'll keep you informed.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Want to introduce yourself and make sure the legal stuff is taken care of.
I'm Bill Heil. I live on East River Road, 29228. The studies are at least as recent as 2007. I'm not here to contradict anything. There were work that was done in 1997. There may be some semantic things here, but a variety of different firms on behalf of the Army Corps of Engineers performed them. They started in around 1990. The firm at the time was Foth and Van Dyke. And there was a 2-volume thing that they put together. The first volume is not to be found. I did see it at one point. Following that, a firm up in Southfield named Parsons did some work. And then a series of efforts were put out by a firm named Ellis. And they all of these firms did this work on behalf of requests from the Army Corps of Engineers. The one in 2007, you have to think when you're looking through it, and you can go to sleep pretty fast on this stuff. It's not real stimulating. It mentions the groundwater. We have huge flows of groundwater here on Grosse Ile. And I mean, the water can flow down and back toward Monroe and come back up. And I remember a conversation with Ernie one time, just to show you how strong those can be, when the city of Grosse Pointe decided finally to build a sewage system. And this was back around 1900. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. They all just came down and sat around Grosse Ile. Well, the water came the other way. It literally went all the way back upstream to Grosse Pointe. And those people said, "What is this?" And of course, the sewage system was installed. But this concept he's talking about, I think, can be easily visualized in a simplified way. If you go to the internet, you put in something like surface water, groundwater interface, and look for Oscoda, Michigan, which is right near the Wordsmith Air Force Base. There's 3 or 4 articles from like October of last year. They were printed by a publication called M Live, like the University of Michigan. But they illustrate in pretty straightforward language how these things go. And if you were to read this volume of stuff that I'm talking about and look at it, I'm of the opinion that there were 2 major errors that were part of popular thinking over the years. One was that if you bury something, it stays there. And the other one was the concept that, if it doesn't burn your eyes, if it doesn't irritate your lungs, if you can't taste it, smell it, whatever, then you're okay. The problem is that this stuff that's sitting there doesn't sit there. The flow of water can cause it to dissolve. It can be transported. The stuff down under there is not sitting still doing nothing. We have north of us Grassy Island, which is a big slug of arsenic. If you get a light acidic, it's acidic to a degree. You run that through limestone, which is our base. It makes the holes bigger, and it erodes them out faster. So things aren't standing still under there, even though you think they are. And I learned from it. I mean, there were 7 major heavy metals that have been carefully studied on the airport. Every one of them is considered mutagenic, and what that term means is that it can change your immune system, your genes.
Right.
And what you were, you become something different. If you have another child, that child becomes the something different that you were and may not be as healthy. Well, these kinds of things can go on with chemicals as well as heavy metals. But the process is kind of much more simplified for Oscoda. The bad stuff was here, it went over here, and now we got trouble, you see. There's been a lot of different places that have Oscoda's problem. What everybody's concerned about there is the quality of the drinking water. A really simple example was Wake Forest, North or South Carolina. I can't remember. I think it's North. But there was this guy who was simply had a small business in his garage. He was repairing circuit boards for computers. But he used a chemical called TCE to keep things clean, and it was in a tub or a sink, and it went out a pipe and down the hill. And there was a subdivision down there. And that subdivision had well water, and it became contaminated. Now, the common fix for that is to go to the nearest source of public water and bring in fresh water. It can't penetrate the pipes. It's isolated from what's going on. And to that extent, everything is fine. My contention is that something like that is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Because those vapors from TCE can still have a lot of toxic effects. You can't even sense them, but you're breathing them. And the process is like a drop of water. I remember talking with one man one time. I said, suppose you had like a scale of justice or a teeter-totter. You got this great big cement mixer, and over here you got this big empty water tank and an eyedropper. 1 drop at a time is putting water in it. There's a day when it will shift. Well, that's what happens to your immune system. And that can go on. And so it doesn't have any, you can have this good water supply that gives you healthy water to drink. But if you're using that water to water your vegetable garden and you're eating vegetables and that TCE's around there, now you're eating it another way. So there's a variety of issues that are involved here. And I think it's wise for us to slowly become aware of that. The laws are very complicated. The number of agencies that are involved are numerous. If you try to point a finger at who did what, when, why, and how, holy smokes. I mean, we've got, in our situation alone, and we're probably one of the worst we're ever going to find. You've got BASF that dumps stuff on the north end of Hennepin Point. Where does it go? What's it? Who knows? Ford Motor Company. 3 steel mills. But you can go north because it all flows. You can get up to Port Huron, and you got Sarnia, and Ernie told me, I don't know, it's 19 or 21 petrochemical plants up there. But it doesn't stop there. I think it... I lost my train of the word I went. Duluth, Minnesota. It was on public broadcasting. There was one time a program that said that beluga whales out there in the Atlantic were dying of cancer. Why? They were getting metal tailings off of the iron ore operations in Duluth, Minnesota. I can honestly tell you one of my neighbors walked out on his dock, I live on Gibraltar Bay, and put a magnet in the water and got iron ore tailings off of it. Now, we're sitting here in a situation then where we could get something from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Duluth, Minnesota, you pick it. And we're in such close proximity to BASF, the old McLouth plant, that big dump that was just north of Paul Smokes Bridge. You know, to think that stuff could cross the river and get here when I'm talking these other distances, that's like a chip shot or a putt even, you see. It's very real. I live on the opposite side of Gibraltar Bay from AOC, Area of Concern 24. And one of the things there that I remember clearly, I've got the documents, but the statutes say that there shouldn't be more than 10 parts per, I say parts per million. There's various standards. They won't act until they get 20, but I'm looking at a document that says there's 224,000 at one point over there. There's no question it's been exceeded. I'm taking the opportunity to go to length because when he mentioned the testing, that's why I'm motivated to say we should test and we should do it with some thoroughness. Because I'm not a lawyer, Carl. I mean, I have studied law, but when I look at these issues, when you buy a piece of property, you have some responsibilities, but you also, after certain points, inherit, if you have done nothing, the full burden of whatever is going on there. And we might well be facing burden with these pieces of property in some way for cleanup. I don't know that. There is help available, but there are statutes with conditions. And boy, are they complicated. I mean, you can sit there and find this bowl full of gunk, and there's some from here and some from there. It's sort of like saying, where did the cherries come from? Where did the pineapple come from? I know it's fruit cocktail, but who's responsible for each piece? And it gets complicated.
Sure.
But I wanted to share that and just reinforce that because of what I'm describing.
Okay.
And thank you for your time.
Okay.
The testing is important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Bert, any comments generally? No. You also?
All set.
If not, entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming, folks. Appreciate it.